Howdy there, folks, and welcome back to Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. I said I was going to probably do Russia for the next one, or rather the Russian Empire. I've decided to create for myself a scenario in which if the empire falls, if the Romanovs are deposed, I stop playing. That is my fail state. I know that this can go into revolution, become the Soviet Union, can become the Russian Federation. It just goes on and on and on and on. Not going to do that. Romanovs forever. We're going to do that. Fleet create, own, no, and random. All right, it's 1890. I have a few Empire games going, but yeah, I like to challenge myself. After this one, I'm probably going to do the United States, just because I'm an American, and I know a lot about American history, as you should, if you're an American. And I don't mean the meme version of American history. I mean the actual version of American military history. I have education in that field. That is kind of the one thing I wanted to point out, is there is kind of a celebration of what I'd like to call the meme version of history. I used to call it the sugar packet version of history, or the cereal box version of history, where you have like 3 paragraphs on the back of a cereal box, and it's like, did you know in this one battle? It's missing all of the context, because things don't happen in a tiny event or in a tiny box. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It would be like, for those of you familiar with Band of Brothers, either the wonderful historical work by Ambrose or the show, which stays very close to that. It would be like putting out the Battle of Bretoncourt Manor, where you have these guys taking some Flak 88s in a field just a few days after D-Day and on D-Day. And it's such a textbook assault that it's still taught at West Point. And I go, that's great. But if I just showed that battle and said these guys were the best badasses, that would kind of detract from it. Because if I didn't show that they had a guy, Captain Sobel, who drilled them so hard they hated the man. I mean, and even years and years later in interviews, everyone there would say, I hated that guy, but he's the reason why we're alive. He trained the shit out of us, and he beat us within an inch of our life. And that's fine. That's what you need. You need that sort of experience to make things happen. Bleed more in combat, or bleed more in training, bleed less in combat. The other thing is to point out that, hey, a lot of the German defenses were actually kind of scattered, and all the guys who landed there were also scattered in piecemeal units. So it's also a statement on improv. It's a statement on how well do you bounce back from great mistakes? How well do you come up with a plan once everything has hit the wall? You have to really talk about as well. Paratroopers are relatively new in the American idea at that point, and is the first broad-scale use of them in the American military system, after the Marshall reforms especially. So you have to get into all of those details in order to tell an adequate story. So when it comes down to Russian naval history, people would go, remember there was that Voyage of the Damned, and there was the thing, and it's like, there's a lot more to that story. One thing that people really don't like to point out is that the Japanese had this thing called radio telegraph. The Japanese had allies called Great Britain and the British Empire, who told the Japanese where they were, the Russian fleet, at every step and every port along the way. So that way, the British showed them where the barrel was and where to shoot. And that's not really surprising, because the British built a great deal of the Japanese fleet from the Mikasa onward, well into the 20s. A lot of Japan's most famous ships were built over here in England. There's a lot of things to history that, if you add that context, makes it less of a meme and more interesting, because it adds to the layered nuance of history. It adds to that layered nuance of interstate issues. It turns that which is a meme into something more like Game of Thrones or Battletech. This faction hates that faction, so they work through another faction to achieve XYZ. So that's why, I guess in a roundabout way, some people have asked, why do my history videos take so long? Well, it's because I'm a historian by training. And every time I try to do things cheaply, I hear my professors in my head saying, don't fuck this up. Do it right. Don't try to be quick. Don't try to do memes. Do it right. Sorry, I'm going to turn this up. I have to turn the music off because it is literally all licensed tracks. So all the music you hear right now is Hutz's selection of classical music. And it's really good stuff. So Hutz, good job. High five. Every faction in the game has a few custom ship classes, and there's some... Oh my god, look at this! This is horrible! I'm gonna build it. Alright. You go up here. I hear chat screaming already. That's why I'm not doing this live. You know what? The TSAR is a big fan of the coal industry, so we're gonna need some smonk here. So I will admit this with a preface. I am not a historian of Russian naval history. I know enough. I can talk about a lot of things related to it. I can talk a lot more about the Soviet era Navy. That's something I actually know a considerable amount on. But when we get to the older stuff, I'm going to have to ask you to forgive me because I don't know everything. Why is this overweight? Make longer. There, solved. God, this is going to be a terrible boat. Look at the roll. This thing is just going to roll over. But it's going to have very efficient engines because of all the smunk. Oh my God, look at this. Look at this. Chat's going to be screaming. And that's okay because I can't hear them. So we have plenty of guns. They're all 4-inch guns, which is nothing. I'm going to put in all these casemates because that makes me happy. Oh, man. I can't. All right, you know what? Take it down to 16 knots. That'll make it underweight. No, that'll make it overweight. All right, look. This is our boat. Oh my God, look at that engine efficiency. And in an age of crap, that's amazing. That is amazing. Look at this. Look at this guy. Oh man, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. Oh man. I will call this the Kopeck. Oh, wrong. Kupek. I guess that's what the, that's the Russian penny, but I imagine the Kupek is like a Soviet version of Mario. When you think about it, Mario is kind of like a Soviet hero, right? He's a member of the working class who destroys aristocracy. He's going after like King Koopa. You know what I mean? Oh my God. Look at all these cruisers I can make. Let's see how bankrupt we can be. All right. Kopeck, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm gonna put those in Odessa so I can have my fleet there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm gonna put these guys up at Kronstadt, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Need my Far East fleet, more or less. Petropavlovsk, no, Vladivostok, bigger port. And then you fuckers are gonna be, choices. You know what, Novosibirsk, there. I'm not great at speaking Russian. I just want you guys to know that. Please don't presume I speak good Russian. Я ничего не знаю is usually my response to anything said to me in Russian. So, we've got our fleet, and our fleet is all in being, and I'm going to make them a fleet in sleeping, because I'm going to say, please don't be awake. Let's just don't go to sea. That's expensive. And I'm just going to let the GDP slowly grow while I work on something a little bit heavier than Kopeck. Kopeck is a bad ship, and I'm going to keep as many of them in service as long as I can, because that's funny to me. Yeah, the Tsar likes his smonk stacks, so we're gonna keep that ship in design. And the idea of this is just to shell the enemy with a weight of light fire and hopefully incendiary the fuck out of them. Now let's see what other cancer we can make. Ooh, these. Look at this guy. This guy's all confused. He's kind of dumb. All right. Let's do this. Okay, what is it? 30, what is it? 3750, is that our maximum displacement on those? Looks like. All right, let's make this 16 knots. This is a coastal gunboat, you know? And, yep, it's going to be one of the ships of all time. One thing I liked about the last Let's Play is I was reading some of the notes where people were talking about what it would be like serving on these vessels. Not everything they said was complimentary. I understand. We're gonna have a smonk stack, only one. That's why the Tsar doesn't like these vessels. Only one smonk stack. They were seen as, you know, just not as good because the Tsar was like, no, it has no smonk, so not great. But hey, guns. It has those, and we're gonna have it doing its thing. Compound, barbette. Okay. Not very engine efficient. So let's just put some armor on these, and I'm gonna use these as just export bait, as we like to call it in the industry. The objective is to sell these to countries who are like, I too wish warships, and you're like, this is a boat. It has guns. All right. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's not too bad. I said uncertainly. You know what? Let's give it luxurious quarters. You know, this is going to be the nice one. I'm going to call this nice boat because it is. It's not a warship, but it's a nice boat. It's really not a nice boat. That is excessive pitch and roll. So when it comes down to history, you'll find a lot of people try to confuse entertainment for history, like Saving Private Ryan. Historically accurate movie? No. Good movie? Yes. Historically accurate, though? No. So... and that's fine. That's fine. You know, the Tiger tank in that is a T-34 that, you know, has... they worked on it to make it look roughly like a Tiger tank, and that's fine because there weren't Tiger tanks in operational status for film use at that time. The Bovington Tank Museum's Tiger tank was not operational yet. You look at Fury. Good movie? Yes. Historically accurate? No. There's parts of it that are historically accurate, but again, not historically accurate. Good movie, though. Then again, if you want to see historically accurate in film that's also good, Band of Brothers is pretty much 90% there. Another one, even though it is absolutely fictional in the character and the ship, is Master and Commander Far Side of the World, which is from the Patrick O'Brian series of novels, which are historical fiction, but the attention to detail is superb. Japan wants to fight. You know what? Fuck them. There. My unrest is at 30. This may be a short Let's Play. I may not even get to ramble on. Oh, no. Emergency welding repairs, early contact mines. Yeah, this is not good. All right, so I'm going to hope the GDP recovers, and I'm going to hope my backwards government is not going to cause the serfs to rise up and then start shooting people in the name of the proletariat. That's going to be a bad day. All right, lighter boilers, lighter reciprocating system. I'm not going to specialize in any sort of research either for this run-through. I'm just going to let research run rampant and see what happens. Told Japan to fuck off. Oh, they want to buy a nice boat. Yes. See? Export bait. If you build them cheap enough, countries line up, and Sweden's decided to be my friend, which is their problem. So... the Russian Imperial Navy. It was founded in 1696, and I believe that is going to be Tsar Mikhail I, which would be Mikhail Fyodorovich Romanov, if memory serves. And the first ships that were actually built in Imperial Russia were kind of interesting. You have Danish shipbuilders from Holstein, or Holstein, however you want to say it. There's probably a right way. Oh, Austro-Hungary is mad. Yeah, I'm going to blame it on the British. I'm going to take the economy thing. I need my unrest down badly. Italy is yelling at me. That's fine. So there's this little bit down here there was a bit of a war, the War of Schleswig-Holstein, where Germany decided to have some of this. Well, Prussia at that point decided to have some of this, and Denmark was like, bro, that's fucked up. And there's actually a really decent movie about it called The Battle of Dyobbol, Dyobbol. I believe that's the name of the book or movie. It's a Danish film. Or is it Norwegian? I forget who made that. But yeah, so there were some shipbuilders from there in the 1630s who came over to Russia, and they built a modern three-masted ship design for the Russian Imperial Navy based off of European designs. And the first ship was named Frederick, and on its maiden voyage into the Caspian Sea, it sank. So this kind of sets an ominous tone for the Russian Imperial Navy. It has a long history of oopsie doodles. Let's call it that. It has some victories. Oh, Kopek, Argentina wants to buy boats? Absolutely. Argentina, you're fine with me. You're absolutely fine with me. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that happen. Now, even though it had that oopsie doodle, you have to understand that Russia fought Sweden, so I'm kind of surprised, as I said, that there are allies. Oh, Sweden wants to buy a nice boat. Yeah, there are allies right now, which blows my mind. But Russia fought Sweden from 1656 to 1658, and they seized, I believe, Dunaburg and one other fort. It was a pretty good fight. And they built one of their first actual shipyards there because they had access to non-completely iced ports over here now for the first time, because Sweden used to own all this shit. And so you see a lot of ideas of Russia as well, building on rivers that then connect to the Baltic Sea. So you'll find a lot of interesting ideas of building on the Oka and the Volga rivers, and then shipbuilding there, and then floating the stuff to the sea, and then selling it or using it. But they built some really interesting boats. But yeah, it's an interesting Navy idea. The Russian military under the imperial age really comes into its own with this guy by the name of Peter the Great, who is like a fucking giant. The dude was huge. He was like literally huge. And yeah, they did a campaign in Azov that was, oh God, Argentina's still buying ships. What is Argentina? None of my business. That's right. My customers' affairs are none of my business, aren't they? They're none of my business. They're my customers. Why would I care what my customers do? Because it's none of my business. So, yeah, I'm going to do the military-industrial complex thing, right? I'm just going to say none of my business. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Because my customers are my customers are my customers. And I obviously don't need to judge them or tell them how to live their lives. I just, there we go. Petropavlovsk, getting more boats. And yeah, we actually have built a decent shipbuilding capacity. But yeah, the Russians have also fought Turkey a lot, which is kind of interesting because if you look at the Russian-Turkey kind of wars, because there's a few, in the 1880s and 1890s, some of their skirmishes were some of the first wars fought with Winchesters and Gatling guns, which is pretty badass. So, Cowboys, Indians, Turks, and Russians, pretty wild stuff. Then you also find that there is a lot. Oh, Kopek cruiser. Yes. There's a lot of really fun history that people overlook. Because, as I'm sure you know, when it comes down to history, there's people who are like wereaboos. All they talk about is the stuff Sabaton sings about, which is fine. That's an introduction to history, and I'm glad it exists. I'm not trying to be gatekeepy about history. I think everyone should read it, and everyone should debate it and understand it and try to take lessons from it, because humanity is cyclical, and we tend to do things the same way we've always done things. But when it comes down to understanding the deeper nuances of history, you have to understand this thing called historiography. And historiography is probably one of the least favorite subjects of history. That is that whole notion of how was history written? So if you look at, say, the Roman histories of the Germans, you find out that a lot of what they write about is really not about the Germans at all. They are really not writing about the Germans. They're writing about themselves and using the Germans as a moral crutch to do so. Navy has nothing to do with corruption. That's a lie, but that's what I'm going to tell them. Let's see. We need more... yeah, no more unrest. I'm telling them, yep, the Japanese are up to no good. But yeah, when you look at the Roman histories of the Germans, you find that they say, oh, and the Germans are this, and the Germans are that, and the Romans are this, and the Romans are that. What they're using is the Germans as a straw man for Roman moral arguments and Roman moral identity. A lot of the people who wrote that stuff had never seen a German in their life. And were just like, well, we need to decry the waste of our, frivolous rulership and so on and so forth. We need to criticize the moral rot. So how do we do this? Well, instead of saying our fellow Romans, we say, the barbarians, XYZ. Or the Romans would classically frame things and say, oh, these are lessons from the great emperor 3 centuries ago, and then just make up a bunch of bullshit, which is fine. I mean, that's kind of how history was written for the longest time. If you had ancient historians in the modern era, they would not last. I sincerely mean that, because they would be constantly called on to defend their assertions, and back then, trust me, bro, was a legitimate strategy. Industrialists who are impressed by our Navy are ready to invest for the needs of the fleet. That increases unrest. GDP. I'm just going to tell them to put it in the GDP. I'm trying to make the unrest go down. So, yeah, when I said the Russian fleet was built in 1696, the Imperial Russian fleet, the Romanov fleet, I had mentioned earlier dates. I said, well, they built some boats in the 1630s. Why is it considered 1696? Well, it comes from a decree that was actually passed October 20, 1696, which is the Duma, the Boyar Duma, made their decree after Peter the Great's report of the Second Azov campaign. And that is kind of where they say, we have a navy. And it's like, yeah, Peter the Great built one. And then they were like, let's acknowledge it. Like normal, the government is behind on acknowledging facts. The Prime Minister believes that our Navy's crew training is inadequate. They don't go to sea, so I'd probably assume so. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say everything's fine. And no more questions. I'm gonna pull a Skeleton King there, and I'm gonna build more of these because they're cheap and nobody hates them. They're essentially very bad boats, but on paper, I have a lot of steel in the water, and the enemy doesn't. So they can all go fuck themselves while I build these giant, stupid navies that don't actually have to do anything. Hey, and our shipbuilding capacity is 69.7 tons. Nice. Man. So yeah, I'm building a big old navy of crap, and I'm waiting for technology to get better so I can build a fancier navy. But I think I would like to try to build up to at least 100 cruisers. So if I do go to war and I lose, I can at least savage the people who attack me so much that by the time they get their ships out of repair, I'm laughing and dancing. I'm just gonna do that, laugh. I'm gonna do one keck. Shipbuilding industries are constructing warships. Yep, that. I'm going to take the money. Let's see. France has sent an ultimatum. Refuse. Fuck off. You're not my dad. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're all the way over there. You're going to send Napoleon again. You're going to send him over here with his little hat. You're going to send him over here. You're going to send that guy. That little Napoleon guy. That's fucking great. I'll send him packing, just like last time. By the way, if you ever want to see an interesting study in how Imperial Russia fought wars, the Napoleonic campaign and the Battle of Borodino, that's an interesting study. The French were, at that point, though, severely encumbered by many problems. Many problems. But yeah, the Battle of Borodino is an excellent study and kind of early defense in depth. Before that really became a thing. It was just keep falling back, and then hit them. I know some people think that modern warfare defined all modern terms, and if you think that, you haven't read your Clausewitz. Every war has its own particular peculiar preconceptions and issues. But if you look back to this guy who went by the name of Genghis Khan, he would do these interesting tactics where he would retreat for weeks, if not months, to get the enemy into this absolutely desperate state of wanting to pursue them constantly. I have to chase them. I have to chase them. I have to chase them. I have to give chase. I'm going to break them any day now. They're riding them to the end of the earth. And in the meantime, you know, like a cartoon, like a rubber band, like a mainspring, Genghis is slowly winding up his forces to be able to strike back. Just winding up for that knockout punch. And that is how it's done. Now, that would be considered an elastic defense or defense in depth by modern standards. But modern military strategists have this problem where they think that, you know, shock and awe is a brand new concept that started in the 21st century. And it's like, no, it was deep battle theory once, and then mobile fires, and, you know, before that it was blitzkrieg, and nothing new under the sun. Nihil novae sub sole. Oh, Sweden wants to buy more nice boat. Very nice, very nice. When it comes down to military strategy, though, I frequently tell people to start with the classics. Read your wordy stuff that makes you feel better. That's Sun Tzu. Then read the stuff that's actually constructed on battlefields. Read your Clausewitz. Read your Antoine Jomini. And then when it starts getting into modern conflict, I'm going to make an advisement that some people don't like. Because we weigh things so much in the modern world of who was right and who was wrong, even though some people are celebrated, and I do mean very much celebrated, as fantastic leaders, and they say this was a hero, I ask you to do the difficult endeavor, the supremely difficult endeavor, of separating fact from fiction. The War on Terror, especially in America, produced a series of generals who all wrote these books about leadership. I ask you to look at the results before you acknowledge any of them as strategic geniuses. I'm not saying that they're not strategic geniuses in their own way, but the conflicts of today are a far cry from the mass battle of yesteryear, and each has its own peculiar limitations and preconceptions. Again, Clausewitz. When it comes down to battle tactics and theory, modern conflict is very confusing. It's very complex, and you realize people go to school for many, many years to be able to command a modern military. You find that the modern general is more or less a PhD of conflict because things are so very complex. And as I said on the podcast, as we were talking with a West Pointer on the podcast and an armor officer, if anyone says they understand modern warfare in its totality, they're lying, because most people don't. It's incredibly complex. It's an interlaced system of systems. This is a digital battlefield with lots and lots of data. It is a data-driven war. Oh, by the way, we have 110 ships now. Oh, our neighbors are going to hate us. They're going to say, they have 110 ships? Well, they'll know. They'll just see a smoke cloud slowly fade over Europe. When I fire these engines up in Kronstadt, there's just going to be frostpunk because of the blackout. Oh. The thing that's kind of interesting is that during Peter the Great's reign of Imperial Russia, you see this massive buildup of the Russian Navy. That's why they kind of give it to him as like the founding father of the Russian Imperial Navy. This guy really poured resources into it. And I mean really, really poured resources into it. You have essentially, I think, something like 20 shipyards being constructed during his reign. Vorozhna, Kazan, Arkhangelsk, Petersburg, Astrakhan, all of these shipyards began in his reign. As well, you start seeing that there's a conscript system for sailors come into place. You also see some ideas being copied from the British Navy. Everyone copied from the British Navy. That's fine. That's just kind of the way it was. I'm getting that unrest down. I keep seeing it tick up. And I'm like, no. But the thing that's also interesting is that the Russian Imperial Navy actually regularly hires foreign nationals during this time because Peter the Great was a huge fan of the West, like huge fan. He was like, oh, we have to do Western-style armies. We have to do Western-style navies. We have to do Western-style learning. We're going to shave our beards and have Western-style mustaches. And he just saw what he liked and copied it, which is smart. Copy what works and then make it your own. So he hired a lot of foreign military experts to help train his navy. So like Cornelius Croix, the Greek Ivan, what was his name? I think it was Ivan Bostis. I know he hired Thomas Gordon from Scotland as well. And, oh yeah, the British Empire might want to fight. Fuck them. I got more crap. That sounds very bold because they could attack me on so many fronts. Because they could hit me from India, they can hit me from the Pacific, and fighting a global empire. But the thing that's crazy, the real reason I mention this, of this massive buildup of the early Imperial Russian Navy is during Peter the Great's reign, they built over 1,000 fucking ships in their navy. So it went from like, haha, we have a few boats, like 20, 30 boats, to 1,000. That is nuts. That is nuts. And the thing that's crazy is that this Navy was largely initially staffed by foreigners. By foreigners. A lot of their Navy was foreigners to start the war. Like all the wars of the late 1600s and the early 1700s, a lot of their Navy was foreigners. They needed that expertise, so they hired for it. They just more or less put out, calls to arms and paid people well, and slowly built up their Navy by just essentially subcontracting it, which is kind of interesting. Let's see. All right. So far, no one wants to fight me, which is fair. I'm looking at the research. Am I going to get some better hull strengthening soon? Maybe. All right. Time to do a refit of all the 18 billion kopecks. No new kopecks, only refits now. I'll also sell off the rest of the nice boats. I'll mothball them and sell them off. I was watching people's comments, and yes, a lot of people said, Tex, you can mothball. Yeah, I know. I typically don't because I forget about it. It's one of those things to say that I know what I'm doing. Those of you who've watched me long enough know that's not true. Ooh, mine layers. Excellent. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. What I do know is that I'm here to entertain as best I can while I can. That's what I do know. Oh, wow, that's too much armor. So we're going to do 0.7 armor? Oh, these things are crap. These are not good boats. Okay. No mines. Too expensive. Oh, this thing is not a good boat. I'm going to give it the tiniest sliver of armor in the Citadel. All right, there we go. 17 knots. Ba-pow! Okie dokie. This is really bad. This is not a good boat. But it's a boat for now. Not a boat forever. Kopek! 4 years later, we're like, hey, you know how the piston has the one big spinny? Well, now we're going to do several spinnies. Ah, boy. Oh, yeah, let's go to the fleet and mothball the sad boats. And then we go up here, and then I go, hey, guys. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. I'm gonna mothball these sad fucks. After this, I might build a fancier boat. I don't know. The kopecks, I'm just gonna keep refitting. They're gonna be my crap, and yeah, they're probably gonna die. That's okay. That's okay. These things don't have a lot of crew. They don't. It's not. I mean, they have 250 dudes each. Now here's a wild one. Nice boat is it should be 37 something tons, but as you can see, my shipbuilders may have just welded in extra trusses somewhere. Is it heavier? Why? So here's a weird one. It's a heavy cruiser. It's heavier than Nice Boat and has far fewer crew than Nice Boat that has 250 across the board. Why? It's probably a complication of machinery, but yeah. Well, actually, it's gun crews, now that I think about it. Yeah, it is gun crews. Because my ships are nothing but gun crews for all those little 2-inch guns. So you probably have 100 dudes running around with shells, handing them off to the next guy. Oh my god. All right, let's see. Yeah, you can have some nice boats, Sweden. Oh yeah, Sweden would like to buy it. Yep, they're buying my cruisers. They're buying them right out. I'm just like, I don't need them anymore. I see that thing that's covered and encrusted in seagull shit. Oh man, they're just buying everything. Yeah, holy crap. We are making that money. Let's see. Is the fleet ready? The fleet is ready. Excellent. Well done. Well done. I'm not going to build any more of those. Let's see what we can build now. Oh, wow. I can build a Battleship 3. Boy, what an ugly tumble home. My other option is cruise liner. You know what? We got to do this. We got to do this. We're going to make this Imperator Peter, you know, for Peter the Great. Now, I have some friends who are absolute Russian history, like Imperial Russian history and literature people, so I do know they occasionally watch my channel. They are my friends, and they are pedantic as shit. So they are probably going to come in and say, well, actually, Tex, when it comes down to my stuff, because I'm just rattling stuff off that I remember. This is not scripted. And I'm going to just tell them to shut up and look at how many smokestacks I put on my boat. That's going to be my counterpoint. I'm going to be like, counterpoint smokestacks. And they're going to go, why? And I'll be like, counterpoint smokestacks. Do you have smokestack? No. No, you don't. Okay, so that won't fit there. Those fit? Yeah, all right. I'm going to have some fancy... This is the worst fucking design ever. All right. Actually, it's not all that bad, except for these casemates. What the fuck? All right, whatever. I'm just going to... Where do we put cannons? Waterline? I thought that went out of style in the 1680s. Don't worry about it. Oh boy, what a boat. All right, here we go. We're going to build a handful of these just to scare people off and say, yeah, I got battleships. Even though that's like a technical achievement here. You know, this thing is going to have the structural integrity of a wet soap. But that doesn't matter. I mean, I'm just going to put better ammo and stuff in it. And you know what? I'll over-armor it just to make myself feel better. Let's see. You know what? Let's see if we can make a structural box in this thing that is just absolutely heinous. There we go. Now let's make that main belt like, what, 14 inches? No, that's like World War II levels of armor. Okay, yeah. All right, nice. Okay, let's even it. Wow. Wow. Okay, hold on. No? All right. Imperator Peter. That thing's actually pretty... I hate to say good, but look at that engine efficiency. This is like a global operations boat. A global operations boat in the 1890s is a stupid idea. But we have one, and it's only 12 times more expensive than whatever. So I'm going to build these in twos because their obscene cost may bankrupt the state. Like, when the Duma sees the bill for this, they're just going to be like, what in the cinnamon toast fuck? And I'm like, it's a boat. They're going to go, no, it's not. The fuck is wrong with you? And I'll be like, oh, it's boat shaped. It's for boat stuff. Again. Oh, wow, America and Spain are fighting early. Usually that kicks off by the late 1890s, but whatever. Oh, yeah, Sweden wants to buy that. Yeah, I'm going to sell my old boats to Sweden. I sell to Sweden. That's my impersonation of Swedish people. And I know Swedish people, and they don't actually sound like that, which is why it's funny. I am Swedish. Let's see. Improved structural steel. Oh, nope. Yep. See, selling off my old mothballed ships. The problem is I'm watching my monthly balance tick down, and I'm not a fan of that. But we have a giant navy, and we have a bunch more mothballed ships that I'm just going to sell off. And now we have these battleships that are... I'm not going to build many of them, but they're fun. You should have fun when you're building a navy. You absolutely would. Yeah. But when it comes down to history, keep in mind that which is entertaining is often not very factual. So while there is a cool story, you have to look deeper than the story. Because when they say, oh, here's this guy who did this amazing thing, or here's this amazing battle, there's stuff that goes into that battle that makes it true. So one of the things I'd like to point out is you look at the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Now, at the time of the war, we say it's a sneak attack and unprecedented and crazy and what have you. Now, a historian is going to put on the historian lens. Oh yeah, I'm going to tell Japan to fuck off. Let's see. Yeah, world peace. We'll contribute to world peace because it makes our unrest lower. So you're going to sit there and say, no, Sweden, you can't have a battleship. Those are for me. Those are for me in Argentina. I'm not going to sell you a battleship because we might fight again. And holy crap, these things are taking forever to build. Oh, it's because our shipyards are all fucked up. Okay, that's right. It's okay. Ah, God. This is going to be nuts. So, Pearl Harbor. Some people would say unprecedented, unpredicted, unpredictable sneak attack. And you go, well, the year before, down here at Taranto at the heel of the boot, the British do a torpedo attack with swordfishes on a navy at port in daylight. Very effective. Very effective. Does some significant damage to the Regia Marina. 2, the Japanese have fantastic torpedoes and airdrop torpedoes and have been constantly drilling with them. 3, there is a heightened state of conflict that we knew was coming because we kept fucking with the Japanese, because the Japanese kept fucking with Southeast Asia, to include murdering lots and lots of Chinese people and conquering whole huge swaths of everything and having eyes on the rest of it. So we cut their oil and metal off, and then they got very mad. So when you start to economically cripple people because they're being warmongers and fighting people, you have all the sparks you need. And then there is that one missing thing that is absolutely critical that a lot of historians gloss over. The Japanese Imperial War College, for their Navy, one of the final exam questions for like a decade leading up to Pearl Harbor was, how would you attack a foreign peer navy in a shallow water Pacific port? It's pretty much saying, how would you do it? Now, naval adjutants and observers, of course, saw all this, and they knew this was happening. That the attack happened on that day was certainly a surprise. That the attack happened at all, though, not a surprise. That's where you have to put on those historical lenses and look a little closer. Always look a little closer. And the thing about being a historian is you can't really choose sides. You can't just say this is the truth and that is the lie and this is the best history and that is the wrong. You have to be willing to change on a dime. You have to be willing to pivot whenever new facts arise. You have to embrace the truth, whatever it may be. And I understand truth is subjective. I understand that much. Fuck off, Britain. I understand that there is a lot of subjective truth because there's a cultural truth and a historical truth and a mathematical truth and a scientific blah, blah, blah. And then you have, theoretical physics and all that, and it throws it all out the window. What is truth? What is fact? But there is something that is inclined to be more accurate, factual, and truthful than not. And trying to find that path is difficult, especially in history, because when you enter into cultural national pride, when that is put into issues, some countries cannot talk about some things. Japan will largely gloss over its long history of very curious actions taken during World War II. Imperial army units releasing cholera and so on the local populations of China, killing millions of people. Japan will typically not talk about that so much. There was a rather famous Japanese historian. He wrote The Pacific War, and he criticized a lot of the history that students were being taught because he said, we have to understand all the mistakes we've made. And culturally, it's seen as losing face. China, of course, will not talk about Tiananmen Square. Many countries will not talk about their bitter and dangerous periods of history because it's inconvenient. And I think that that's part of being a historian, is frequently reminding people that history is not always nice. History is dirty. It's very difficult to read, and sometimes you will be surprised that seldom does it seem are there good or bad guys in all situations, or that war is good or bad, or that outcomes are good or bad. War is suffering, war is chaos, war is destruction. So, you have to look at things through those lenses. Let's see. Minister of Finance needs more destroyers. Shut up. I don't need no destroyers. I have the cruiser. But when it comes down to history, don't let anybody tell you what to think. Start researching. Don't use a book. A single book as a source. Don't go to Reddit and say, Reddit, I have a question, and then use that as a factual response. That's somebody's opinion. Go actually start to study. That is what you must do if you want to be a historian. You don't need a degree in history to be a historian. I have a degree in history. You don't need to be a degree in you don't have to be a degree holder to do anything. Well, unless you're a doctor, then you should probably have that degree. But what I'm saying is history is a lifelong study in pursuit of knowledge, especially when it comes to our forefathers and forebears. That's critically important. So keep that in mind when you start your history walk through life. And I'm not trying to shit on anybody who's into casual or interesting or entertaining history, but history is deeper than entertainment. History is something that is more than a meme. History needs to be something that is studied by people who are stringent in their approach and understand that if you funk this up, future generations are going to have the wrong lessons. They're going to think that they can do nothing wrong, and that's going to be a problem. Soapbox over. So I'm waiting for a war to kick off, and it seems like nobody wants to fight the guy with 100 cruisers and is slowly working on battleships that are better trademark. Oh yeah, we're going to get better boilers so I can hopefully... I don't think these boats are going to get much better. Smokier, perhaps. Better, no. All right, let's see. What do we got here? Okay, 2 battleships are done. I'm going to build more. I'm going to build more and more and more and more. I'm going to hopefully build 4 of them by the time a war starts, but I doubt that will happen. I seriously doubt I will get the next set of ships out by the time the war starts. It's, 13 months. I don't know. I might. So, I'm going to continue to put these ships into limited. What do we got? Well, we're making positive, so I need to refit the Copex again. Time for incremental changes in technology. Oh, we can't build these anymore. Yeah, well, that's why the shipyard's not building them. The shipyard is going to refit. Oh, we're going to use hydraulic steering so they can steer even better. Double hull, reinforced bulkheads, got a citadel. Okay, we're going to move out of black powder finally. Mines? Can I put some mines on this? Yeah. All right. There we go. Oh, too much armor. There we go. Little bit more armor. 300% engine efficiency. Fuck yeah. This boat has a really long range for its era. It's still terrible in every which way, but good enough. Good enough for now. All right, let's see. So the Russian Imperial fleet was always a really interesting, what we'd like to call the Fourth Fleet, because the 3 prime fleets of Europe are pretty much who you can guess. By the 18th century, you're talking about Britain, Spain, and France. Germany really didn't have a navy until the Prussians, and even then, not really until the Steam Age, because they saw it as secondary to their armies for various reasons. But when it comes down to world navies, you have Great Britain as number 1, and then Spain and France. Spain, because it had a global empire that was on the decline by the 18th century. And then you have France, who is becoming ascendant. And then you had way over here Russia, which really had limited fleet because, well, It had some issues, like I had to get past Turkey to go do stuff, or the Ottomans at that point. And it had some ports in the north that were frozen, and then it had fleets on the far side of the world where nobody was. I'm going to say that the Chinese are a global threat. There we go. I'm just going to say that. Anytime they question me, I'm going to throw a country under the bus. I'm going to be like, well, these guys could be trying to kill us. You never know. I would tell the Chinese Admiralty I was doing this too. I'd be like, guys, do you want some fucking budget? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that each other are a problem. They're like, yeah. Okay, sounds good. All right. Oh, more GDP. Let's see. German Empire has sent... Oh, espionage. Fuck off. Just sitting there trying to tell me what to do. You can go suck a yard of dick. You are not going to get money out of me. I have numbers on my side. They're probably like, oh my god, his navy is huge. And I'm like, on paper, my navy is enormous. In reality, no one has been on that ship in years. We just send them pictures of our navy because they never see our boats. They never leave harbor. So we just have moored up hundreds of boats in a pile. And they're like, oh my god, that navy's huge. And we're like, yeah, it is. Let's see. We need to increase the GDP. GDP. Yes, GDP. All I want to do is increase that GDP. Now I need to get my unrust back down because I did a few things to make it go high, and I can't do that. Oh, boy. So the Romanovs are an interesting study in how not to be an autocrat for too long, because if you're an autocrat, you need to make some power balance and power sharing. You need to do some of these things to pretty much, balance stuff. You have to have some power resting in the hands of people who don't want you dead. That is a difficult prospect for most people, because most people like holding on to power. So the Romanovs held on to power for way too long in a way too autocratic thing. They are still very feudal by the time everyone else has moved into the Enlightenment age, and then by the time they start, loosening the restrictions and being like, peasants aren't property, things have already gone way too far down the sad place. They start getting into the proletariat problem, where you have this vast oppressed class that suddenly can read. Then you end up with the sea of bayonets and angry burning. Now, the thing is that at what point could they have corrected things? I don't know. I'm not a Russian imperial historian. I could not tell you at which point they could have corrected things, but I also know that they had a lot of problems with what's called power transfer. Power transfer is what happens when somebody dies, who's in charge. And that power transfer is kind of important because you need to have a reasonable means by which to transfer power from one generation to the next. And so in Imperial Russian history, you have a czar will die, and then someone will replace them, and then that person's the false czar, and then that person's killed, and then the cousin of the first guy comes back and says, I was thrown in prison by the first guy, but I'm back now, and then they keep him around for a while, but then they kill him, and then the cousin of the second guy comes back, and it's like, holy crap, what is this, Game of Thrones? Yes it is. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And occasionally you get someone like Catherine the Great, who is German, and then comes in and holds things together for long enough for people to go, wow, that person was fantastic, even though they hated her while she was alive. Because she said crazy stuff like peasants aren't property and all sorts of other radical things. And, it's, history's funny like that. A lot of people will also say, oh, Catherine the Great was all sorts of naughty and did all these really degenerate things. And what's funny is all of that was bullshit and made up by people who hated her. And they did it so hard and spread the rumors so far to discredit everything she did and paint a huge backdrop of just negativity about her reign. That she did plenty of stuff that was bad, but not the stuff they accuse her of. That's kind of really something that's old as time. You'll find that Egyptian pharaohs frequently did the same thing, where they would just deface, they would remove somebody from history by saying, well, I'm the new king, and that guy was a dick, so I'm going to just chisel his name off everything, so in 3 generations, nobody knows who he was. I've removed his face from the currency, I've removed his face from the statues, and China had a revolution. Nice. Oh, and we have the radio telegraph. Go, Marconi! So I wonder what China's government's going to be now. Oh, by the way, I did hear that this game is getting multiplayer, like 100-player multiplayer. That's gonna be bonkers. I hope the campaign's multiplayer so I can have my friends tag in and do stupid stuff. That would be really neat. Indonesia wants no battleships are for me. You may not have them. However, I did just unlock some better stuff. Now, it looks like I'm gonna get Harvey armor, which is interesting. That'll be really nice. All right, let's see. Russian Empire, February 1897. I'm going to build some new battleships, but yeah, I mean, I have to. And I'm going to upgrade everything with Harvey armor. I'm just going to keep upgrading my Navy until it's less sad. And by less sad, I mean that's incremental. Because, every generation of shipbuilding has its bad ideas. There's plenty of them. I'd say the current generation of shipbuilding has a lot of that, where you find vessels that are not survivable. I'm a huge skeptic of IFEP power plants. That's integrated full electric propulsion. That crap tends to break more often than not because modern navies are like, I need to turn 150 megawatts off turbines. And you're like, okay. I mean, that's nuclear power territory, but okay. And then they wonder why their ships break. Oh, this looks like a Monopoly boat. I can only have 3 smog stacks, so that's kind of not good. But I can get 11-inch guns on this son of a bitch, which is good. That is actually really good. I love the double-decker casemates, so I'm gonna do that. Oh, hell yeah. This thing I like, even though it has huge holes in its armor for really poor reasons. Let's see if we can get this thing to 18 knots. We're going to scare Europe. 4-weight offset is too high, so I need to... Well, see about moving that back. Nope, that's as far back as that goes. What about you? Can I move that citadel any further? No. 4-weight offset 100. Why? I mean, the citadel seems to be fairly normalish. Yeah, whatever. I know how to make this work. It's called make the engine huge. Make weight good. 20 knots? Can I do 22 knots? I can do 22 knots. All right. And then what about triple expansion steam engines? Yeah, all right. It may be unstable as all fuck, but I don't care. This thing could pitch into the sea. This thing's badass. All right. Let's do 21 knots. Oh, not that. That would be a bit heavy. All right, there we go. Black powder gun cotton, ballastite. And then I'm going to do, yeah, there we go. Yeah, she's really unstable, but yeah, whatever. Just add more onto it. I'm going to need to put more armor on it. More armor. That'll help make it, yeah, this thing is unstable, so I don't care. Since it's unstable, I'm going to call it the Romanov. There we go. Good job. We're going to build this son of a bitch. 21 knots in the 1890s. Might as well be called Speed Racer. Romanov. More expensive than the last boat, which is fine. And I'm going to build these 4, even though they're not that great. I'm going to build them in... You know what? I'm going to build them in Sakhalin because I want to watch my shipyard workers freeze to death. That's over here. It's fairly chilly. So, on the Patreon, for those of you who are curious and supporting my larger film, our team's larger film endeavors, and supporting the podcast and many other things, on the Patreon, I do weekly updates where we talk about, what film we're working on, what initiatives we're doing, charity and fundraisers we're working on, and various things. We were talking about what would you do if you had all the money in the world? Like, what if you won the lottery? What if some mysterious benefactor came up and said you could have one shitload of money? And I've admitted on multiple occasions, I would love to build an Age of Steam ironclad or a 1890s style steam clipper ship or monitor, and then go cruising around on it. I find that era of Navy very interesting, and I wish this game would have more to do with the 1870s. I would love to see the Tirpitz and British interplay era of the 1870s through the 1890s. Then in one of the scenarios in this game, they have ironclads, and the ironclad combat era is cool because it still has a bit of that tall ship, broadside, bring alongside and boredom crazy action, but it also has that steampunk element of, these are giant steam engines and one of them will explode. And I think that that's all neat. It pleases the autism in me. And I can't believe it, but we have stayed out of wars so far. Who hates us the most? Who hates us the most? The United States? Austria and the Habsburgs. Okay. Japan. Japan really is not our friend today. Look at our naval budget. I mean, shit. We've got the unrest down. We have a massive surplus. We're selling ships across Europe. We're making money for the country. I mean, right now we're at a negative, but I'll manage to make that positive in no time at all. I've kind of abandoned torpedoes as a means by which to do things, which is wrong. I know there's going to be a lot of people who are like, Tex, torpedo squadrons are the... I know. Yes, I know Tirpitz started off in torpedo boats. I know that everybody started off in torpedo boats. I get it. But I don't care. I might build a torpedo boat, though. Ooh, that's a long boy. You know what? Let's build a long boy. There we go. We'll go right. And we're going to do 26 knots. Holy shit. That's a long-range torpedo boat. Okay, we're going to put some little guns there so the crew feels like they're helping, right? Then I'm going to have... There we go. And we're going to do that. Oh, and it can minesweep. Oh, man, this is a great ship. Accidentally, somehow. Triple expansion. How fast can I make it? That's the... Okay, get rid of that. Now I'm interested in very bad things. Okay, engine efficiency, I can't get much more than that. But 26 knots in the 1890s? Oh, that is some good shit. That's the good shit. All right, what about this? Okay, hold on. Okay. Not that, but 28 knots? Fuck yeah. All right. Holy crap. I may have created a super weapon. Oh my god. Have I just broken history a little bit? Okay, more torpedoes. It carries more torpedoes. Okay. Yeah. Give it the fancy crew. Oh, okay. Yes. I'm going to call this Longboy Mark 1. I know that's not Russian at all, but I'm going to build it. Holy crap. Longboy Mark 1. This thing is going to turn like... Well, it won't. It's going to bobsled. It's going to go sideways before it turns. I don't care. That's high speed. Longboy Mark 1. I'm going to build the first 20 in the Pacific because the Japanese are not going to be nice to me. I have a feeling I'm going to need Longboy Mark 1 over there to fight the Japanese. And that's fine. Oh, we're almost at our limit here, too. Good goddamn. Wow. They're sitting there trying to say I'm corrupt. Wrong. We got Harvey armor now. Yeah. But every time they try to tell me something, I'm going to be like, no. Fuck off. Fuck the fuck off. I might cause the revolution myself. They accuse me of something. I'm like, I'll shell your country. They're like, we are your country. And I'm like, uh-oh. Oh, you shouldn't have given me a navy then. I'm going to shell something. So we have some boats, and the Habsburgs and the Japanese are really mad at me, which is fine. They're allowed to be mad, but not that mad. I'm just going to fight them. I'm going to fight them like a drunken idiot. And that's what you do. I can now build better destroyers. No, I'm not going to sell those yet because my shipyard is quite near capacity. But Longboy Mark 1, I mean, that's not a bad boat. On paper. Some of you are screaming, yes, it is text. I'm going to say, shut up. But, yeah, all right. Here's what we go. It's like Jackbox music. I'm just making mouth noises. Okie dokie. We are at 1897. Wow. Oh, cool. No, Argentina. Bad. You have enough boats. I sold you most of my navy along with Sweden. Just go away. You have enough. Finish what you started. Don't sit there and try to tell me what it... Okay, 12 months until the new battleships are ready. I'm going to have a lot of classes of a lot of battleships, and most of them are really, really bad. But that's okay. All I have to do is be annoying enough until the enemy gets tired of shooting at me. And I know we're running a deficit right now, but I'll fix that. Don't worry about it. We're just kind of a bit overextended when it comes down to things, but, you know, when it looks... all right, so our GDP is... oh, yeah, France is starting to get rich. China's doing all right. Yeah, we're just above the Italians, we're behind the Americans, we're behind the Germans, we're way behind the English, so trying to grow that GDP as quick as possible. That's what I need. I need to grow the GDP. I need to grow the GDP. I need to grow the GDP. This will allow me to reach great empire status, and I need to just start swallowing up everything I can. Hopefully, before they start getting smart and realize I'm a problem. Which they probably will. I mean, they're dicks. But, you know, I'll see what I can do. Oh, wow, they fired the head of the German Navy. Fuck off. I win. All right, let's see. Naval prestige. Respected. Absolute monarchy. Yep, that's how you do it. That is definitely not how you should do it. But it'll make me feel better. And I get the Longboy Mark 1. Oh, man. All right. Well, at any rate, I think this will do for this episode. I've managed to lead us through almost a decade without a conflict. So I'll see you fuckers next time. And remember, please take care of yourselves. Times are hard, things are difficult, but keep a positive attitude and help people if you can. Until next time.
When we build up, I know I'm gonna be the best warship was built for you. When we set out, I know I'm gonna be the best warship that sails for you. When we spot them, I know I'm gonna be the best warship that will take point. And if we take heat, I know I'm gonna be the best warship to take that heat. Oh, I would block 800 rounds, and I could block 800 more just to be the ship that took 1,600 rounds and sunk them down below. When we're working, I know I'm gonna be the warship working hard for you. And when the fleet comes, I know I'm gonna block every round they ever throw. When we take heat, you know I'm gonna be the ship that comes down to save you. And if they sink me, well, you know I'm gonna be the ship that takes one more with me. 'Cause I would block 800 rounds, and I could block 800 more just to be the ship that took 1,600 rounds before I up and blow. When they pen me, I know I'm gonna be the warship tells them I'll fuck you. And when they struck me, I know I'm gonna be the ship that fires torpedoes. When I go out, well, you know I'm gonna be the ship that's shooting torpedoes. When they sink me, yes, I know I'm gonna be the ship that sinks a couple more. I'm gonna be the ship that sinks way fucking more. Cause I would block 800 rounds and I would block 800 more just to be the ship that took 1,600 rounds before I up and blow. Renown, 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 renown. Right now, 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 right now.